Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your first reading lesson of the week. It is Monday, and it is the 19th of October. I would like us to begin our reading lesson the way we always begin our reading lessons, with our picture prompt. Have a little look at the picture on the screen. I would like you to make a retrieve, an inference, and a prediction. Remember, a retrieve is when you're just saying what you can see. An inference is when you're taking what you can see and coming up with almost like a conclusion about it. So, for example, I think this because in the picture I can see this, this, and this. And then for your prediction, you're saying, right, if this was a story, what do I predict will happen next? And remember, that should start with, I predict that. Pause the video here, complete your retrieve, your infer, and your prediction. Remember, when you submit your work in, we will expect to see those three statements. Okay, so today's text is called Henderson's Boys, and it's by Robert Muchamore. I'm going to read the blurb to you now. Best-selling author of the Cherub series, Robert Muchamore launches a powerful and pacey new series about children working undercover. The year is 1940, the place is Paris. Hitler's army is sweeping towards the city, and millions of French civilians are on the run. British spy Charles Henderson is determined to reach two British children who are being hunted by German agents. His best way of doing so is with the help of another child. It doesn't take him long to realise that the best hope the British have of winning the war is to use children. But can he convince the Secret Service, and how can he keep them hidden? So it's a really good, exciting, action-packed book. Before we move on with our comprehension for Henderson's Boys, there's some key words that you need to know. Those words are moist, shriveled, chateau, stern, and pasture. What I'd like you to do now is to go away and research those 5 pieces of key vocabulary. And I'd like you to write down the definitions of each of them. You can either use a dictionary or you can look it up on the internet. When you submit your work, I will expect to see those 5 words with the definitions accompanying them. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see I've put some key names you will need to know. Mark Kilger, Director Thomas, and Morel Farm. Pause the video here and make sure you've got your definitions for your key vocabulary. Okay, now it is time to read the text. So can you pause the video here, go into your Teams documents, and can you open up the text and have a read? This should take you between 5 to 10 minutes to read. Once you've done so, come back to the video. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've read the text now. If you've not, then you need to go back and read it. We're going to have a little look at some of these guided questions. So the first guided question says, look at the paragraph starting, now 12 years old. What phrase implies that Mark believes his mother did not want to leave him? So I'm having a little look and I can see the paragraph here. It's on page 5. It says, now 12 years old, Mark had imagined his abandonment so often that his memory of it seemed real. The frosty platform, his anxious mother kissing his cheek before boarding a train and disappearing forever, her eyes moist and her head crammed with secrets as the carriages steamed into the night. So it says, what phrase implies that Mark believes his mother did not want to leave him? I would say it was his anxious mother, because if she was anxious, then she was a little bit afraid. Maybe she didn't want to leave him. Some people might argue that she could be afraid because she was worried she might get in trouble. In that case, I might say that it was her eyes moist and her head crammed with secrets could be the phrase that implies that Mark believes his mother did not want to leave him, especially the eyes moist bit, because this would imply that she's crying and upset about leaving him. Can you write your answer for that first question? Number 2 says, use the text. It says use the test, it should say use the text. Use the text to help you complete these sentences about the extract, and it's 3 marks. So, Mark was found at blank station. So I'm going to start skimming and scanning the text, looking for where it talks about a train station. Oh, I've just seen it right there at the top of chapter 1. That's why it's always good to start skimming and scanning from the top of the chapter, especially if you're not sure where this might be. And I can see there it's called Beavis Station, I think. Beauvais. So I'm going to write that in there, making sure it's got a capital letter. It next says the story is set in the country of. Now, it says here 60 kilometers north of Paris. And I know that Paris is in France. So the story is set in the country of Paris. Sorry, country of Paris. Paris isn't a country. It's set in the country of France. That's the mistake I think a lot of people will make. I think a lot of people will write Paris for this answer, but Paris isn't a country. France is the country. The next one says blank is the person who owns the farm, which was called blank. So we need the name of the person who owns the farm, and we need the name of the farm. So I'm starting to skim and scan through the text, looking for a name. Obviously I've got Mark, but I know who that is. Oh, I've just reached a name of a farm. It's called Morel's Farm, Morel''S, and then farm was the largest in the area, and Mark was the youngest of 4 boys who worked there. Mr. Thomas, the orphanage director, took advantage of the shortage of labour and received a good price for the boys' work. So it's Mr. Thomas is the person who owns the farm, which was called Morel's Farm. There we go. And the final question is, on the farm, the boys had to look after. So I'm starting to skim and scan for some animals. Oh, I can see there. Most of Morel's land produced wheat and vegetables, but the farmer kept dozens of dairy cows. So they had to look after cows. Number 3, what impression do you get of Mark's mother? Use evidence from the text to support your answer. Now, it's a 3-mark question. It's an impressions question. So we have to do impression, evidence, impression, evidence, point evidence, got to Pepe. So one impression that I get is that she is maybe that she is in trouble. And I think that because it says in the text her head is crammed with secrets. So I think she is in trouble because in the text it says her head crammed with secrets. And now I need to do it again. I also think she is panicked because in the text it says his anxious mother kissing his cheek. So there's an example of what I would put. I've had 2 impressions, so she's anxious and she's in trouble, and for both of them I've backed it up with evidence from the text. Make sure your structure is point followed by evidence. I think she is this because in the text it says this, and then repeat that. Once you've completed these guided questions, have a go at your independent questions. I think in your independent questions, there are some 3-markers, and I would expect to see the same structure as the 3-marker we've just practiced together. Don't forget to send your work in once it's complete.